You know, your family, like my family, was not always on the right side, but this is where
Right.
people like Hamburg came in
Yeah.
and really helped straighten us out and point us in the right direction. I got another name for you, and I know how close you guys were. Now, I never had the opportunity to meet this person, but he is the reason my older brother, which you met my brother Derek,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
he was the reason that I ended up at Simeon. My brother told me, first of all, you're not playing baseball no more. You're going to play basketball. And then
Uh-huh.
he told my mom, we got to send him to Simeon because if Bob Hambrick can make a Ben Wilson, he can make a Deon Thomas.
Yeah.
You had a great relationship with Ben. Of course, you guys were there. Tell me a little bit about the man, other than what I know from watching on television, because
Right.
I
Right.
was in 8th grade at the time and
Right.
didn't have an opportunity to meet him, but you did.
Right. I met Ben. I was a freshman. He was a year older than I was. He was a sophomore, and he was on the varsity, as a sophomore. And I mean, when I first met him, I was like, "Oh, who's this little skinny kid?" You know what I mean? Like, man, I can't wait to get in practice. You know what I mean? I'm gonna do him right. So you get in practice, and everybody talking about, man, that's Benji, that's Benji, that's Benji. I'm like, oh, okay. But he was a joyful, jolly guy. He played around a lot. He loved to joke. He loved to have fun. So I'm thinking, oh man, this, and he was one of the ones that could joke and play around with Hambrick, even with Hambrick being serious.
Wow.
He was one of those type, like, man, he could joke, oh, Hambrick, man, oh, all right, man, hey, stop playing so much, man. Stop playing so much. So, but when I met Ben, man, he was just, and I had Jim with him, and we was having Jim, and that's when I seen him hoop, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, man, this dude is stupidly talented. And we just became really good friends, man. And we became really good friends. And, what happened was a tragedy to me. It still hurts me to this day. It took me a long time to watch the documentary, the 30 for 30, because it brought back too many feelings. It brought back too many. My junior year, which would have been his senior year, we were the first team in Simeon that was ranked the #1 team in the country.
Yeah.
Ben was the #1 player in the country, but we were the #1 team with me and him and Nick Anderson and David Knight and Deion Butler, and so we were the #1 team in the country and deserving so. We had a great team, man. I mean, the tradition that Hambrick had started to build at that time, which was before us a little bit with the '84 state championship team and the teams before us. But Ben was a good guy, man. I don't think he'd hurt a fly, but super talented. I tell people, and I know this is going out on a limb, and a lot of people may not like what I'm about to say, but I tell people, had Ben Wilson lived, Michael Jordan may not have been the greatest basketball player that they ever seen. I say that all the time, and I mean it.
You just took the word. My next question was to you is because there's always a debate. Who's the best in the city? Who's the best to come out of the state? So with that statement alone, I think I know where you stand. Because I tell people ask me. Now, I never saw Ben play outside of watching him on television when they were making the state championship run, but I hadn't seen anyone with just a myriad of skills that could shoot it, put it on the floor, hit the rack, that would dunk on you, that could shoot it with range, even though it wasn't a 3-point line at that time. But he was shooting way beyond 3-point range. So when people ask me, who's the best player to come out of the city? I've seen some guys that were really good, but to me, that guy is the best guy to come out of the city that I saw. And then everybody else is kind of like, no disrespect to Jabari or guys like that. They're kind of mimics of him.
Right. Well, I think that I think you dead on. When you talk about Simeon basketball, and we just talk about Simeon, I think to me, he was the greatest that I've seen. And I mean, I'm not taking them from, like you said, Jabari or Derrick Rose or none of those people, but the reason why Derrick Rose and Jabari Parker probably came to Simeon was because of Ben Wilson. Even even back then, you know what I mean? And I tell people, you got to think about two things that at Simeon, I mean, in the state, in his year, which would have been 85, would have been the year he came out. You got to think of some of the guys who just in the state of Illinois, like Lowell.
Yeah.
Like Lowell Hamilton. Lowell was ranked 2. You got guys like Melvin McCants that played at Purdue.
Yep.
You got guys like Ed Horton who played at Iowa. So you know how good those guys were. You know how good those guys were. So imagine him being above them. So if you want to compare, let's go to the experts, and the experts say, hey, these are some of the guys. Now, this is one thing that I love to brag about. In 85, a lot of people don't know, but it was 3 first round draft picks that came from that class. One of them was, actually it's the Red South. I think it was the 90 draft, 89 draft that Nick was in. Yeah. And it was 3 guys from our conference, just our conference alone, that were first round picks. Nick, Tim Hardaway, played at Carver, and Byron Ervin from Julie.
Yep.
So that show you how tough the competition was just in the conference, not in the whole. We're not talking about the whole city of Chicago. That's just in our conference. Those are the guys you got to play every day. I mean, in your conference, you know. Yeah. So, you know, that conference back then was, you know, the 85, 86. I mean, even it was tough when you guys was there. Y'all played a lot of King though, but but that conference was really, really tough back then.
You know, it takes me, so funny you say that. It takes me back to when I was at the McDonald's All-American game. And after our first practice, well, better yet, we hadn't even practiced yet. I'm sorry. On our interview when we got there. So the reporter asked me, he was like, hey, well, what do you think about this? How they've assembled some of the top, you know, players in the country. You know, there's a lot of talent here. I literally looked at him, and maybe this is the arrogant part of me. I looked at him. I said, dude, I play in the Chicago Public League.
That's right. That's right.
I'm like, I play against dudes like this every day. This is
better. Actually better than most of these guys, probably.
Yes. Yes.
I'm probably, you think about it, man. I mean, it's a ton of that whole era, man. It was so much talent just in the public league. You look at Robeson's, which is the schools that we were supposed to go to, both of us. Yep. You look at the Robesons, the Paul Robesons, you know, they had Jerome Childs and they had Greg Jones, Terrence. I mean, Robeson and Smooth and D-Train and, you know, they had Robeson was good, King was good, you know, it was Farragut was good, you know, I mean, it was just in our conference though, Carver and you know,
South Shore, CBS.
That's right. Juwan, you know, you and Juwan had some battles. So I mean, just think about that. You know what I mean? It's just when you talk about the talent that you had to play against, it's crazy that, you know, it's the McDonald's game, but they need to assemble something like that. Which I remember back in the day when I was a senior. We used to have a city suburban game. I don't know if they had that same thing when you was there, but it was the city guys against the suburban guys. And it was fun. You know what I'm saying? You got to play against all of the suburbans, and it was just fun, man. It was a fun time. You know what I mean? And those all-star games and those games at the end of the season be special because you're like, I wonder what it feel like, man, to throw a lob to Lavertus Robinson.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Or you know what I'm saying? Or maybe make a pass to Marcus Lively on the break or something. You know what I mean? Because you playing against these guys, but then all of a sudden you playing with them. Yeah. You know. So
amazing time, man. Chicago basketball was amazing.